Howdy folks, welcome back to another episode of Super Hamster Plays Kingdom Death Monster. As ever, do me a favour, hit the thumbs up button on this video and don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well so you don't miss any more of my videos. So, as our campaign is going on, we have recently encountered the King's Hand. That's the next model we're going to need to build. Is it the King's Hand? King's Man. Yes, there's the hand, and then there's the Kingsman. Funny enough, I have the hand somewhere over here, and I'll be doing his video fairly soon as well, because I don't think it's going to be long before we meet him too. But as you can see, I've got all the components here all cleaned up. We've got the main body and cloak, got a couple of legs, a bit more cloak, 3 parts to his head, his big halberd, and his right arm, and his sheathed sword, and his left forearm. And of course another 50mm base, just the insert, not the underbit. As I've said in my previous videos, I like to paint them separately so that there's a nice even finish on them. But this one's another relatively straightforward miniature, but I've done all my dry fitting, I've cleaned up all the pieces, and yeah, we're going to get cracking. So I'll just plow on with this. You can see that leg includes like the thigh, and it has a socket which is actually for that, and it just slots into that groove there. And then there's this piece which fits in, get it round the right way. Is that the one? Yeah, I think that's the one. Yeah, it fits in there. So then that piece goes in alongside it, and you have this piece here with the other leg. So I'll get sticking with those, and we'll see what we come up with. So our polystyrene cement. Nothing new there. Let's just make sure we get a decent covering. It's a nice big contact area on this one, so that fits quite snugly. As you can see, if you look at it from that side, there's a sort of front and or a top and a bottom piece there. We want those to seal, so I'll do that with those. Piece number 2 goes into a very similar position. So let's get cracking with that one. And we'll just seal the 2 together, because we're not going to do that once I put the other leg in, which is what I'm going to do next. And just above his knee, or about halfway through his thigh, you can see there's a joining area there. And there's a flat strip on the back. Make sure that's all the right way. Position that one in there. And he should stand up quite nicely all by himself. So that's the easy one. So next is going to be his sword, which you can just see on, if you look at it like that, on one side it's flat and on the other side it's got that peg. That peg goes into that hole there, so it just hangs at his side. If we get it lined up, it's probably going to fold in that crease there. You can just about see it. I may need my trusty tweezers for this one. It's not a particularly delicate part, it's just I've got quite fat hands. So there, that just hangs at his side. generous in there, including in the gap. That's along the bottom of the cloak. And that's on there. In that goes. Yeah, just push that into place, and that will sit there quite merrily. So he's now got his legs. He's in a cloak. He's in a cloak on that side, and his sword, which you can see there. His hand hangs down to the side as well. There it is. There's that. Just there. That's his arm there coming through, and there's a staggered crease. And if you look on that side, there's that same crease, and it's basically going to sit on the sort of side of his sword, which creates nice layering. You know, it's his sword and his armour. They're not flush as you'd get on a single piece model. Yeah, let the cement do the work. But yeah, so it's sort of hanging down at the side. Push that into place, and that's there. Quick splash of the old cement in all the key joins. And that's that one. And we've got his other arm, which is just going to sit there so that it's flush with the ground. Now, part of me was tempted to put it at an angle, so he's in a slightly more combat sort of pose like that, just to give it a bit of depth. And I'm still tempted. I figure if I cut at the elbow and sort of stretch it out a bit, I'd have to fill it in with some green stuff or something, but that should be doable. And I'm still thinking on that one, so I might leave that till last, and we'll see how it goes, because he is a very upright model. It's very regimented, whereas I quite like the idea of him having that sort of angle, having stuff hanging down. It'll just add a bit more depth, because he's very singular planed. You know, he's upright, everything's up, up, up. Whereas by doing that, it'll give him a little bit more width. I'm thinking I probably will, but we'll cross that bridge. So next thing is his helmet, which has, I say it's his helmet, it's half his helmet. And on one side it has a sort of shield shaped piece, which is his neck, and on the other side it has a small peg. If I do it that way, can you see better? Put it down like that. You see? You know what? Let's see. But yeah, so suffice to say, the half finished side with the peg goes up, because the next piece here has a hole in the bottom, which will sit on the peg and complete his sort of the top of it, half of his head. So first things first, we dollop on his neck, because that's the recess, so it'll sit there better. Quick dollop on the bottom of his head, slide head into recess. Press it down a little bit, leave that for a few seconds, and that's that done as well. Next we're going to take the crown section, which if you look on the bottom, the hole is not in the centre. I don't know if you can see that. And if you look at the head we just stuck on, the small peg on the top of his head, that's not centered either. So the peg and the head are at the front end of his head. So cement on there, something in the socket, and onto the peg. That's that. There's plumage. There is a slight tab running essentially along that direction, but it's really narrow and it's really small, and if you weren't sure it was there, you might just think it was a bit of flash or something. And in the top of his head now, there is that recess, and funnily enough the two go in, so he has the plumes on the top of his head, which is nice. Yeah, so it's going to sit, that's the shape of the plumes, and it's going to sit off to the side. But again, we've got recess on the top of his head, that's the crown, top of the helmet, whatever you want to call it, and the tab and the plumes. Place one inside the other. There we go. So there he is from the side, there he is from the front, there he is from the back. Check that head was on square, it moved a little bit. So yeah, so all that's left now would be to stick him to the middle of his base. And then traditionally you would just stick his halberd like that, completely straight. Much like that. But yeah, the more I think about it, the more I'm thinking I'm going to put him with his halberd at that sort of angle. I might not even need to adjust his arm, it might fit perfectly well like that. Although the angle's wrong, it doesn't quite look right. So no, I think I want to do it at the elbow. So I'm going to set him to one side, just leave all this to dry. I'm going to look at that, I'm going to try and work out the best place to do the cuts, and then I'll bring you back. I'm also kind of tempted to do something with this base, because it's a little flat, and all the others have been, which isn't a problem. I just wonder if maybe he should be stood on something to give him a bit more height. But yeah, I'll have a think about all that off camera, and I'll bring you back. First things first, I have put the lid back on my cement, polystyrene cement. We're getting that out of the way. I have my trusty knife, and I have my extremely deformed and battered cutting board. I really need to get a new one of these. The reason this is deformed, battered like this, is I was doing some basic assembly on some miniatures. I can't remember what they were for. I think it was Super Dungeon Explore, the board game. And I was doing them in the back of my car at lunchtime while I was at work, because there were so many of them and they were very irritating. And when I was done, I left them sat on top of here on the dashboard of my car, and they got nice and hot, and this moulded to the shape of my dashboard. It peeled off okay, but yeah, I've been slowly trying to flex it back out, but I really need to heat it up and then leave it on something flat, or just get a new one. They're not that expensive. But anyway, I digress. I have decided that I am going to give this guy a bit of depth by having his arm that way. But I like the arm coming straight down from the shoulder, like that, which means I need to open out. I like this bit being straight, so I need to open out that elbow and have it going there, and then that part will be coming up here, so I can then stick that like that. So that's the plan. So how am I going to do it? You flip it over, there is a definite crease which coincides pretty much with the back of his forearm. It's sort of around here, and I'm going to chop that off. I am then going to remove the next piece of plastic, that is this triangular piece here. You have to be careful because I like the detail of the elbow guard, so I might have to do that with a file, but I want that. And then I'm going to take a piece of this sprue that he came on, that's all nice and rounded, and I'm going to cut a replacement piece for the bit that I'm going to get rid of. It'll be straight rather than the triangular shaped piece that I have. So that's the plan, and that's why I put the lid back on, because chances are I'm going to knock the table, I'm going to knock things over, things will not go well. It's from stuff like this that really makes me grateful when companies produce stuff in hard plastic, because it's so much easier. Because if I was doing this in resin, or heaven forbid in white metal, I would be using super glue, I would be using a little pin and a pin vise and some heavy duty side cutters. Fortunately for me, it's all in plastic, which means I can just melt it with the polystyrene cement and it will be good. So yeah, so currently it's that angle. I'm going to change it to about that angle, and then when he comes in, it'll be at that angle, give or take. So that's the plan. But yeah, so I need to shave a little bit off of this side. And let's see if I can't do that this way. I'm actually holding it in place with my nail on my thumb, because I can afford to hit my nail with it. I'm not suggesting you do that, because I'm now going to have little dings and scratches, but it's much better to stab yourself in the top of the nail gently than it is in the top of your hand, or slicing that part of your finger off just past your nail, whereas funnily enough your nail gives you a bit of protection from that sort of thing. I also don't advise you do what I'm doing now. This is a particularly stupid thing. Learn from my mistakes. No, gonna need the file for that one. That's too fiddly. Fortunately for me, if I just spin round, that's where I keep my files, so I don't have to cut. Right, what do we want? I'm thinking the triangular one, because it'll give me a bit of control as to where I'm going, or rather where I'm not going. So I need to come in to that angle. Yeah, so I'm trying really hard not to take off any of the detail for that elbow guard. But again, being plastic, it's relatively soft and you can get away with it. Doing this in metal would be impossible, and frankly I wouldn't have bothered. I'd have just built the model as is. And again, I'd be more than happy with it. It's still a very good looking model. By doing it this way, I can make it a bit more mine. My hand is going to be slightly different to everybody else's. I think that's got that. Let's take off some of the more visible bears. On both sides. And then I need a tiny section. Now, how big? There's lots of these pieces are all circular, but they're all slightly different widths. So the question is, what size do I want? And actually, that one, that's the thickest by far. That one I think is, yeah, it's too thin. Might well be that central piece. Thinner. I think all of that piece, and maybe that bit there. I think they're all the same. I'm going to start with this piece here. See how we get on with that. So. I'll start with it much bigger than I need, mostly because it makes it easier for me to hold. There. Now, if we compare it to that one, it's not far off. It's a fraction big. And I figure I can file that down. So now I'm looking for a flat file, like that one. And let's see if we can square up one of these ends. And then if I twist it as I go, you should maintain the curve. Yeah, that's about right. Now that's not quite square, so it's going to be a bit of trial and error. But eventually I'll get it right. Nearly. Fraction off the bottom. That's the one. That lid back off. On that end. end. Line the two back up as I wanted them. There they are. That bit's going to be straight. I'm going to work out the angle now. So we keep that bit straight. And before it was that angle. I don't want it to be a lot, so I'm thinking I need it at that angle. Let's try it that way. Sorry, I'm going to get... Damn. Okay, found it. Don't ask where it went. Suffice to say, I had to move this entire table. I had to climb on top of my computer desk. I had to get out a fairly high-powered torch and have a rummage around and stretch. Just managed to pick it up like a couple of times and sort of nudge it close enough. But I got there. Breathe in, breathe out. Okay. At this point I'm actually wondering, is it worth sticking his arm on to get the angle right? Nothing else that'll stop me losing it. So if you know what, I'm going to do that. Going to do exactly that. This is another one that doesn't have any real position as such. It's more just a case of that looks about right. His elbow does kind of fit into a recess in his cloak, but it's not particularly cut and dry. I'm also thinking I might stick him onto his base now, because whether I'm going to give him some depth, I don't think he needs anything on the base itself to sort of smarten him up a bit. And that's going to be where his thing is. So yeah, that's about central. So let's do that. Just so I've got one less thing to hold. He'll stand up always, lonesome, without any help from me. Looks to be about right. Getting there with his... Yep, that looks about right. So just seal him up, particularly his cloak. That's quite a big area. Back to his shoes and cloak at the back. Right, one down. Back to cutting. So Put the lid back on. Before I knock it over, how are we doing on there? It's about half a bowl. That'll keep me going for plenty of time. Right. So now let's look at angles. I want to come up there. So I wasn't actually far off with that one. Now I'm going to make it deliberately long because I can always shave a bit more off, but it's a bit of a pig to put stuff back on. Now the angle that way isn't going to be right, but I can check the angle for its fit that way, and that's about the angle I want. So it needs to go back a bit. That forearm is too long, and I need to bring the angle that way around a bit. But we can do that. So trim that back a bit that way. So that piece I just cut off is very much a wedge. Let's see how that looks. From all angles, and that's about what I want actually. Let's check that length, see how that looks from the side. It's a fraction long, but not a huge amount. So I'll just take a smidge more off. Yeah, just like before, this is just a bit of trial and error. That's perfect now. Yeah, I'm happy with that length. But now I just need to cut out a tiny notch. I don't know if you can see it on his arm there. Yeah, what have I got that I can slide in behind it? You might see. Come in like that. That shoulder guard is sticking out. So if that's his arm, this is where we want to join it here. His shoulder guard actually, or an elbow guard rather, extends slightly past, so it's that shape, and we're needing to slide in with it like that. So it's that shape. So that would be his arm there, but because we've got this piece here, I need to notch that piece out there to then fit in, which is this outer edge. And I'm going to do that with a file. So we come like there. Let's put safety first, children. To get it straight and flat, and then just file away till I get a flat edge on here. Let's put that in, see how that looks. I might have taken too much off actually, so I'm going to shorten that again, just a fraction. Let's see how that looks. Perfect. Exactly what I wanted. So don't need that, don't need that. Okay, all of that, go away. Don't need that bit anymore. Yeah, we'll go. It's So yes, that all went completely without a hitch. Nothing got lost, pinged across the floor, hidden under desks. We didn't do something stupid and nearly chop the end of our finger off. Didn't overdo it and have to file it back down a fraction. No, all went perfect. All that effort because I didn't want it like that. I wanted it like that. As I said, he is now mine. There is none other like him. He's slightly less, well, he's significantly less two-dimensional. And that'll join there. So he's now got a bit more width. You can see from there, because he would have been that sort of angle, and now he's splaying it out a bit. And he has more width, more presence that way. And he's looking slightly more combat-y, whereas if he's just standing there holding it upright, it's very much guard duty. Whereas if he's leaning it, guard duty, preparing to attack, slightly more intimidating. Even when he arrives in the village, he does lots of pointing and judging, so pointing with his staff. But yeah, that's the Kingsman, the hand, the Kingsman. The Kingsman. It is the Kingsman, isn't it? What did it say? The Kingsman. That's the Kingsman. That's the Kingsman, everybody. That there is the Kingsman. Thanks for watching. Give me a thumbs up on this video if you found it helpful, enjoyable, entertaining, whatever. Even if you didn't, do me a favour, show me some support, show me some love. Hit the thumbs up button. It really does help my channel get out there into the world. And of course, as I said before, click the little hamster down here to subscribe to the channel as well. Help me take over YouTube one subscriber at a time. I'll see you next time for more Kingdom Death. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. Bye bye.